Want help to grow your business? Download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.
Okay, so welcome back to this very special episode of Importing Done Right. I am your host, Brendan Elias, and today what we're going to talk about is how you can maximize your results from your buying trips to China, including the world famous Canton Fair. So you ready? Let's get straight into it. So we're going to talk now about how to survive the Canton Fair and make the most out of your business trips to China. So when to go? The China Canton Fair, also known as the Guangzhou Fair because it's held in Guangzhou, China, is held over a 3-week period twice a year. So it's held in April and it's held in October, and it's always only ever been April and October. And there are 3 phases: phase 1, phase 2, and you guessed it, phase 3. Now, each phase will have different products, and it's very important that you've done your background research to find out exactly what product you're bringing in or what you want to bring in, so that you only go to the phase or phases that relate to the product. Because if you go to phase 1 looking for building materials when that's actually in phase 3, you're going to find that you paid for a flight to China and accommodation and a bunch of other expenses that you didn't need to pay. So make sure you do that right. Now, for more information, visit www.cantonfair.org.cn to find out what product is issued and on display when, so that you make sure that you only go at the most relevant time. How to get there? So there are many ways to get to the China Canton Fair. If you're going to Guangzhou, then try China Southern Airlines. China Southern Airlines is one of the flagship carrier of Guangzhou, and it is the most direct route. So China Southern Airlines will pretty much always fly directly into Guangzhou. So wherever you are in the world, consider going that way. Now, there are cheaper ways to get in to China. You can go via Malaysia with airlines like Air Asia. That can be quite cheap, or Philippine Airlines as well. Often there are a lot of different ways of going indirectly. What I find is often I like going on Expedia.com or Skyscanner.com and having a look at where the best flights are. Understand that the closer you get to April and October, the more expensive it will be. Now, you can find, the other thing I'll mention is that sometimes it might be worth paying for a higher class ticket. You might be more rested, better ready to deal with all the logistics of the fair. But one thing that you should never forget is that you will often meet in business class lounges customers, suppliers, people you can do business with, because they're all going at the same time for a reason. Remember, always bring travel clothes with you, as it can be a very, very long flight. And it can be very cold on the planes. And remember, if you're going from the US, it can be 15 hours of flying. If you're coming from Australia, it can be 10 hours of flying. And from Europe, it can be quite similar. So it's a long flight, so make sure that you have rugged up, as it were. So research before you go. Very important that you do research the suppliers that you want to meet. If you're communicating with them prior to the fair, arrange to meet them, get their booth number, and go to their booth. And you should also have a very clear idea of what you want and what you're looking to gain before you actually go to the fair. So the other thing is this: once you know the correct terminology of your RFQs or your OEMs or your MOQs, please see my other videos on BRiN.ai/experts for those extra explanations of those terms. Once you understand those, you're ready to go to the fair and communicate with the factories. Remember, if you're going to China, focus around going on the April and October fairs only. No point going to the Guangzhou Fair in May, because no one's going to be there to sell you any products. So logistics to take care of before you go. So make sure you have your visas and passport while entering China. Depending on what country you're from, you will need a visa, and certain countries can make it easier. I know, for example, one of my students, when we went to the Canton Fair together, got a 10-year visa going directly to China, and if you're Australian, you can get a 1-year or a 6-month visa. But Americans are able to get very long visas because of the preference of their passports to China. Right? You can always go and get an invitation from the Canton Fair website. That will make it easy to get your visa. But remember, it's very important that if you have any medication, that you don't forget to take that with you, that you don't go to China without the requisite number of medication, because if you run out, you have to go home. You can't get it in China. It would be very, very difficult because the products are quite different. So in terms of where to stay, you can go to asiarooms.com, agoda.com, also to have a look at booking.com and expedia.com for hotels. A typical hotel will cost you about $120 a night for a decent hotel, or $200 a night for a very nice hotel, and you can get budget accommodation for about $80 to $100 a night. Personally, I wouldn't stay in anything that's less than $120 a night, or you'll have an uncomfortable sleep and won't be able to be rested for the show. Also, some of the higher end hotels will allow you to register for the show at the actual hotel itself, and that pre-registration can save you 3 or 4 hours, so you don't have to queue for long. Sometimes the hotel will provide a bus service for you. Make sure you remember the bus number and the bay number so that at the end of the show, you can go and find it. Remember, the show goes from 9 to 5, but you really want to leave at 4 o'clock, because if you wait any longer, you'll be dealing with the logistics of the tens of thousands of people that go there. Bring your laptop with you, as you'll find the hotels have great broadband connections. All right. Bring your mobile phone with you. One thing that's very awesome in today's day and age, when I first started going in 2001, you'd get a local Chinese SIM card. Now, there are companies that, like T-Mobile in America or Vodafone in Australia and Optus in Australia, that have international plans that allow you to use your phone and your data in China without having to switch SIM cards and not getting those crazy bill shock rates that you come home and owe $2,000 because you downloaded an episode of Game of Thrones. So be very, very careful of that, and make sure you have the right plan and SIM card with you. Also, understand that the phones will offer you some degree of credibility and safety as well when dealing with China. Here's a tip, is make sure that you have a Skype account, as a Skype ID will be very helpful when dealing with the factories. They almost love doing communication with Skype, and WhatsApp is also very, very, very popular. Also, if you have WeChat, that is an app you may want to download before you go, right? So often in China, the best way to communicate is through text communication. What I found is, in dealing with the Chinese, they're very fluent in communication via writing and less so verbally, and less because they can sit back, take time and write what they need to write to get the message across. Next thing that we want to talk about is what to eat at the fair. So unfortunately at the fair, the food options are pretty limited, and you can only really get things like McDonald's and Big John's Paparoma Pizza, and they just have a Starbucks that open that has a line that goes on forever, and a local Chinese franchise known as Kung Fu. These options during lunchtime are pretty random. They're not really that delicious. So my advice is that the hotel's breakfast is probably what you want to fill up on, and then have a light lunch. There will be sandwiches which you can get at cafes, but they're generally not very delicious. But the good thing about Guangzhou is that at night it can be a really fun place to go out. Even more so in my later years of going to Guangzhou. I've been there twice in the last year. And what I found is that by going to TripAdvisor, TripAdvisor.com, and going to Guangzhou, that's spelled Guangzhou, Guangzhou, not Guangzhou, then you can click on recommended restaurants, and the top 10 are really good as well. There's places there that are fantastic. There's like Social & Co., which has a brewery next door, which is a really good option. Japanese good food is good at night, and my favorite for business meetings with customers or clients is the Banana Leaf Apollo, which has a wonderful buffet and is a crowd favorite. So one thing that you need to be aware of is that when you're dealing with the factories in China, that you come across as an expert in your field, that you aren't just someone who's just starting up an importing business, which may well be the case, but there's no reason for you to let them know that. One thing I'll say as well, and this is a very important thing to note, is that there are 41 halls at the Canton Fair. Each hall is the size of 4 football fields. If you spent 1 minute at every booth talking to the supplier, and that's assuming that you haven't had to wait to talk to them if there's another customer, it would literally take you up to a year before you've talked to everyone. So understand the clear vastness of this, and really, as much.
To continue enjoying this presentation, download BRiN, the world's first business advisor in your pocket. To find out more, visit BRiN.ai or search the App Store today.